Blue light.
Blue light. It's on. It's on. We here.
Hey.
We
All
here
right.
now. So, all right. Welcome to Redemption Podcast, Tales of a Virgin, a Playboy, and a Stripper.
My name is Monique DeLeon.
I am Matt.
And I'm Donovan.
These are the conversations you've always wanted to have, but you were too scared to have them or didn't know how to start.
So here we'll be discussing the forbidden with freedom. We have 3 different perspectives, but we got the same good God.
So join us as we dive right into today's topic of summer fever.
Summer
Mm.
All right, let's get into it.
Summer fever. Man, it's weird because if you look at like the holidays and pretty much it starts right about like what's cuffing season. When does that really start?
That's
cuffing season
winter.
That winter. So we say like November, fall. It starts.
I mean,
Right.
if you're in LA, yeah, very much like late November, because the sun is still out. And as long as the sun is still out most of the day, you don't really want to cuff. You want to be free.
So
Yeah.
we have this cuffing season.
Yeah.
But then if you look at like for me, right, I've been in law enforcement for a little bit of time. So I think of cuffing season. I'm like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden spring comes and people on parole. People out.
Oh my
people just
goodness.
having fun.
Did you say parole, bro?
We call it parole season. That's
right.
the opposite of cuffing season.
All right.
People on parole just trying to stay out of trouble.
I feel like somebody's really out looking for you. Like somebody's checking in. Like you are not where you're supposed to be right now, dude. Some of these people need what is that? The ankle thing that they have.
So they
House arrest.
House arrest.
There you go.
Mhm.
That's how
Ankle
some people
monitors.
feel.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
right. They
Yeah.
get found quick.
I will never experience house arrest during the summer.
It's so
I never have. That's crazy. Some
No.
people in relationships where they do feel like they're being policed, like they're being like held against their own will. They can't do
Yes.
what they want, and that's crazy. But summertime is awesome because it really does change the mood. You know what I'm saying? Like how the rain and stuff has an effect on us. We want to be in, want to be cuddling. You know, during November, December, like this holidays, and so you want to be able to take somebody with you to the family events. But outside of that, cuffing season ends. January 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, baby. It's just,
Wait, you mean February?
oh, what did I say?
January.
Oh, I was want to get an early start. I don't know. After that New Year's kiss, that was a good year. I'm gonna start this
I'm out.
one without you.
I'm out.
I'm out.
Oh yeah. I mean, but for summer fever though, man. I mean,
Okay.
it's a real thing. Summer fever is when, for me personally, when you just want to show skin, you want to meet new people.
Sun's out,
It's the
guns
sun.
out.
It's just if you don't hydrate
Sun's
yourself,
out,
it just
buns out.
it has an effect on you. Now, of course, now the temptation now is still present. Even with my walk with Christ now, I mean, I wasn't as committed to honoring Him in my day-to-day life, but in the past, like the temptation was as strong as it is today. I just have more accountability, and I have more wisdom now about the reality and the severity of the consequences. But summertime is still that still the temptation is there to want to take off more clothes. You know what I'm saying? To want to see more flesh and show more flesh.
Mhm.
And I mean, it has to be hard for you. I mean, look at you, Mano. I mean, I'm pretty sure.
Well, I try to stay as clothed as possible.
I mean, even in your
So-
clothes, though, they can see what you're working with.
Yes, they can. And I have had and do have random men that try to grab me. And,
You say grab you?
Like were you like at a convenience store and somebody's like, come here, like
Just
were you-
walking, or even when we've been on the street, like street witnessing and stuff.
Please clarify when you mean on the street.
Okay, I'm sorry. Praying for people on the street,
Okay.
Okay.
Much better.
holding my sign. This is Stop Free Prayer, and
Where you do
and
that
it's
at?
in the summertime. Hollywood Boulevard,
Okay.
down in Hollywood, and summertime. So many people out, and men come up and they try to grab my hand. They come up and they've grazed my booty as they walk by.
Wow.
They just trying to get okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clearly they're being affected by the summer fever. It's like an illness. It's a
I'm
disease.
fully clothed, I swear.
But what do you do when someone is very inappropriate, disrespectful with you? Do you
Well-
give them a pass because it's summertime or what?
I mean, there's been a couple times where there was such a big group of people that walked by that I didn't know who did it. So, it was just a quick, like,
It's a glance.
like,
like, oh, hey,
what was
that's,
that?
that's my booty.
what was that? So,
So explain this to
But-
me. Okay, go ahead.
well, I'll say a couple times police have been out there. So
The
one
police
guy,
grabbed your booty?
no,
Okay.
watching, making sure we're okay. So they arrested this guy for accosting me. So, which was nice.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That is- so if it was a girl, would it be different?
What?
If she
Accosted you.
accosted your booty.
Well, yeah, I would be upset. Of course.
She still
So
gets
no,
arrested?
this is what I'm saying. Like, in summertime, girls are already close to each other. They go to the restroom with each other. They
Facts.
sleep with each other. They,
Wait,
you know,
sleep? How, you don't
I-
sleep next
I
to?
mean, just
even
sleep
as
next to.
friends.
Next to.
I mean, but the
Yeah.
whole thing, like, they're very grabby and very touchy with
Yeah.
one another. And I have some female friends who are very uncomfortable with that, but it seems like that's the female culture. Like, it's just part of being friends with another female. So is there a double standard when it comes to, in the summertime, what women wear, what men wear, and then what everybody's allowed to do? Because I feel like a woman could come up to a man, put her hand on his chest, and want to have a conversation with him. But if I want to walk up to a lady, I can't cup her, and try to have a conversation. So there's that double standard that exists there.
Yes, and I do agree. I do think women shouldn't do that to men. Because, I mean, I've had guy friends tell me that being in the club, women grab them right in the front. And
Whoa.
few times. Yeah, a couple guy
Alright.
friends. So I'm like, that's not okay.
So
But
here, I got a story for you.
Let's hear the
Okay.
story,
Got a story
Matt.
for you.
Summer
Okay.
fever.
So this is years ago, back in my prime. I was I used to I used to work for the clothing brand Abercrombie and Fitch, right? Surprise, surprise. So
Surprise.
I'm taking a flight. I was taking a flight actually to Atlanta to do some stuff for work, and I never forget this. I'm not gonna say what airline I was flying, Continental, but and I'll never forget
Bleep.
this. So I'm sitting there and I happen to go get up to the restroom, like boom. All right, go in the restroom, right? And I'm sitting there and there's like this older Asian woman, there's like this younger Caucasian. Now you know my persuasion, so it didn't really matter to me. But then she's like, so I was waiting. There was somebody inside there, so I was waiting. And she goes, "Hey, I have a question for you." I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, go ahead. What's your question?" And the younger girl's all bashful and like, right? And then the little Asian girl, she's like, "Are you Neo?" I'm like,
Wow.
Neo. And
wait,
I kind of
the
the
singer?
singer Neo. First of all, I'm a solid 6'4". Like Neil, good guy.
What is he,
Good
5'9"?
guy. He's a tiny man, tiny little singing man.
He's-
All right,
Everybody's big when they're a celebrity. Everybody's 10 feet tall as a celebrity. They
except for you,
just
The
never know.
Rock. You actually,
He actually
you're The
actually
Rock. You
is.
actually are big,
Literally a rock.
boulder.
Yeah.
House.
But so she's like, "Are you Neo?" And I'm like, no, I'm not." And she's like, "So what do you do?" I was like, "Oh, I work for Abercrombie and Fitch. I'm here coming into town." And without a quicker than you could hiccup, she lifts my shirt.
Wow. Yeah.
And she goes, "Oh, look at his abs. He
Yeah.
does work for Abercrombie."
yeah.
And I was like, "Oh," and I was young, so I kind of like laughed it off,
yeah.
And the little Caucasian girl was like, "Oh my gosh." And I went to the restroom, did my business, and came back out. And they ended up dropping off some drinks at my
At your
Wow.
seat.
at my seat, so I didn't really care too much. But it made me think. I was like, how disrespectful was that?
Is
Like,
that disrespectful now, or was it disrespectful back then?
Then I was cool. It was cool
were
then because I was
young
young
and
and I was
you
like,
thought
oh,
it was cool.
they flirting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still got my game, right? But now as an older man, I'm like, hey man, I can't be over here just lifting dresses. I can't. Like, let me see them cakes. Like, I can't do that. Like, that's pretty much what you did. You're like, let me see my abs, and that's not
That-
okay.
So no,
It's
this,
not.
the
And
thing
I agree with you, but I know a lot of women who disagree. They think it's different, but it's not. I agree that women
It's
should
sexual
not-
assault.
It is.
It's sexual assault.
Wow.
They should not be allowed. Yeah,
Wow.
that is wrong.
But during the
It's still funny,
summertime,
though.
do the rules change during the summertime? That's
Well,
what I'm saying.
So, okay, let's talk about relationships, right?
All right.
Cuffing season,
Yeah.
parole season, whatever you want to call it.
All right.
All right. Do the rules change? The rules don't change, but I think our ideology sometimes we go, oh, well, everyone's out having fun, everyone's at the beach, everyone's at the pool parties, people in Vegas, people in Atlanta, people in Hawaii, people in whatever.
Yeah.
I want to go out and have fun because they see Instagram, they see Facebook, they see Twitter, and they're like, oh, I want to be like this.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing, listen, you can go out and have fun, but you gave up some of those opportunities when you decide to be married, when you decide to have a relationship. So you can't not do some of the same things you used to do or some of the things your boys or your girlfriends are doing
Yeah.
when you're in a relationship because it's not in the context of your relationship. Now you could do those type of things either with your partner, but there's certain things you probably shouldn't be doing without your partner. Or if you have a partner, you shouldn't be doing it anyway.
See, I'm real big on that can't word though. Like, always get triggered when I hear can't. I can. I could lift up a dress. I could, go and do. I can. I have the ability to. But the standpoint is
choose
that
not to.
what I've had to understand is why should I not? And so that's the big thing for me.
Okay.
Even during the summertime and people are wearing less clothing and you want to go out and have fun and you see how fun is being portrayed on Instagram and social media and whatnot. My walk with Christ requires me to not can't do certain things, but to consider what it is that I do and consider the outcomes and the consequences and how I'm impacting people. Like every time we encounter somebody, they're either being pushed closer towards Christ or further away from him.
Correct.
Every single time, so when I look at this whole summer fever idea from when I was younger in my 20s to where I am now, I'm more responsible with me because I always have an impact on people. I'm always influencing them no matter what season it is. And I can't use summer fever as an excuse to just be loose, and I think that's part of what this segment is all about. Like people feel like summertime is an excuse to be loose. Yeah. Loose in what I wear, loose in how I, act and how I encounter people, loose with my morals, because that's just the way of the land, and even if it's not like that way during, spring and fall and winter, but summertime it now has this culture attached to it. Like, oh, sun's out, guns out, even though we've been taught to kind of be more modest. It's like, but I need to understand, like, why should I be more modest? And I recognize that it is either I'm going to be a part of this temptation, I'm going to help move it forward, or I'm going to really be a peculiar person and go countercultural and be in this world, but not be of this world. But it's hard.
I think it's like what you said about you can, but you just choose not to.
Mm-hmm.
Or you choose to do something else instead. And that's the difference. Because like I've never had a summer fling, and I could have.
You never had a summer fling.
No.
I've had enough for you, so don't worry about it.
But I choose.
But okay, what quantifies a summer fling?
Yes, please.
That's a good one. What quantifies a summer fling? Because we're talking about a summer relationship, someone you found. You're like, oh my gosh, I found him. His name's Willis, and it happens to be July. Or are we talking
Willis.
about Willis? Right, I'm just
don't date Willis.
Jose?
How about Jerome?
Jerome. Oh yeah, I
wow.
forgot. You do prefer the chocolate.
And vanilla.
What is this? Tell us about this summer fling that you so
I'm saying
desire.
fling as in like seeing other friends. It's like cuffing season, the same thing. You just date someone for a couple months, and you're here and there and sleeping around with them. And
have you wanted to?
No, I think because I've always kept busy, and I think that's helped in a way, because it's like that old term, idle time or idle hands is the devil's playground.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're busy, your focus is elsewhere.
But have you wanted to?
No. Like I said, that hasn't even really something that's crossed my mind. I've just seen other people because I'm in another country, every summer, or I'm out singing somewhere. Like, so I stay busy. So when you're busy, it helps you not to be so distracted, helps you not to be so available or bored. Because when people are bored, a lot of times that's when people do things.
True. I'm gonna stop you just for a second.
Okay.
So let's talk about being busy. So the word does say that the idle hands is a devil's workshop, right? It does say that. Well, here's the thing. At some point in time, you have to stop working. At some point in time, you have to stop being busy. Yeah. And around that time, that's when it comes. Like I'm just talking about my testimony, me personally, it was never a problem. There was never any issues during the day, right? It's easy to turn your head. Mm. It's easier to shield your eyes, right? And to maybe stop what you, how you want to think, right? Because you can flesh that out with God's word. You can flesh that out with reading the Bible. You can flesh that out with sound doctrine. But once that sun goes down and it gets to those, I call them the creepy hours, right? I call them the creepy hours, right? Those hours where you're like, you should be in bed, but you can't fall asleep. Oh, but if I just, right? But we talk about idle hands as the devil's workshop, but those are the times where you're idle. You have no choice but to be idle because you're trying to go to sleep.
Yeah. So how do you combat
that? How do you combat that? And that's I think a lot of times, and it's not even a generational thing. That I think is almost a human nature thing. Yeah. Where you have like this element of like loneliness. You have this element of void where you're like, well, I mean, what do I do here?
Like you said, that's true. Loneliness. People, when they get lonely, avoid feeling unfulfilled in this area.
The only way I personally am able to combat that now, and the only reason I know how to combat that is because of all the L's I took back in the day. I mean, I took L left and right. Like, what I've come to understand is that it doesn't matter how much you put up a guard or how much you try to keep yourself busy. If you never experience a heart change, then idle time is always going to be your worst enemy. You have to experience a heart change to the point to where even in your idle time, you don't want to, you don't desire to, you desire something more pure. You desire something righteous. You desire something holy because you're seeing a bigger picture. you know, because as long as the Bible says that the enemy can only tempt you with your own desires. You know, it has to be a desire in your heart for him to use it against you in a negative way. And so that's why even every temptation I look at and I face during the summer, it's always come back to a heart issue. You know, I desire that. It's difficult in the summertime because people are wearing less. I am unmarried. I have no kids. I've been abstinent for a while, and you know the urges still remain, you know, and it's hard to not look. And people say, well, that's somebody's daughter. I know I want somebody's daughter. Like I like her.
His daughter looks good.
Right? So that doesn't like okay, it's somebody's daughter. I'm not looking at somebody's son. I mean, you know, so but how do you navigate, you know, personally, Monique, how do you navigate those emotions during the summertime where you want, but you want to get it the right way?
Yeah. I mean, obviously I have a desire as well, you know, to be married, to be in a relationship. And it is what it comes down to, is just spending that time with God and filling that time as much as I can with godly things, because it has to come to a point where you're secure with you by yourself, even if you have this desire to be married, to have children, which I know the three of us do, but you got to learn to be okay with just you and God at that point. And when I think you are, then it's easier to shun things that you know aren't going to last, to shun things that you know aren't going to be good for you spiritually, because you want what God wants ultimately. And you want him to bring it in his time, in his way, because you know it's going to be perfectly suited for you. So that's where, because probably in my early 30s is where I was like, God, even if I never got married, it's going to be me and you, and I would be okay with that. Now, I don't believe that will happen, because it's a great desire of my heart to be married, and he gives us the desires because I believe he puts those desires there. But I had to come to a place where all my friends are married, all my friends have kids, you know, so I had to come to a place where I was okay if it was just me and God. And I think once you get to a place like that, then it's easier to shun other things.
This is true when you're good by yourself. But I think it's difficult, and I'm going to say this flat out, it's difficult for certain people who look a certain way. There's certain things that are trending, you know?
Yeah.
And so let's just talk about this brother right here for a second.
Yeah.
He's 6'4",
6'4",
bald head, chocolate, handsome. Your look is
Muscles.
trending. So I'm pretty sure I feel like the temptation is probably more aggressive towards you because you're a trending topic. You're a walking billboard for, you know, what people find appealing. And so how do you, with that extra layer of temptation or aggressive temptation that comes towards you, how do you navigate, you know what I'm saying, through the praise? Because, you know, men love praise. We go to where praise is. How do you navigate between that and still try to combat, but still at the same time find your rib in the midst of all that rubbish?
If you don't know what that is, that's a reference to Eve and Adam. If you didn't know that. So
feed me the apple.
it's tough. It is tough, and I think even more so with my past. It's even more so with the L's that I've taken in my life, and trust me, there have been plenty. It's tough because I like to go to the gym. I like to stay active. I like to, you know, I didn't have an Instagram for the longest time. I was late on Instagram. Like, I got an Instagram, I think 2 years ago. People were like, "What? Why do you? What? You just
why'd you even do it?
Yeah, why'd you just now get to the party?"
I'll tell you why.
It's like when your dad gets a Facebook and you're like, "Dad, why? Why?
Wow.
I wanted to check it out." Like, you know, it was weird. I didn't even really know. I'm over here using filters, trying to make myself look better. I was like, they're like, "No, that's not the wrong way to use them. This is stupid." But, you know, now I'm on it. I'm pretty savvy with it, and it is difficult. I think it's even more difficult once. I mean, I am, you know, all right looking dude, and with my profession, I told you this. You know, once I, you know, graduated through some stuff, you know, I posted it on the gram. DMs went up like tenfold.
Yeah.
DMs was like, "How you doing?" Yeah. Okay. Yeah, like shooting like arrows shot to the heart. And you're too late.
You give love a bad name. But we be harmonizing.
So it is tough, and I have to remember daily.
Yeah.
Daily, and I don't want to say. I want to give it even more credence. I have to remember hourly of who I am and whose God has chosen me to be. Because if I don't, I can fall back into my other ways. I could fall back into things that I shouldn't be doing, things I shouldn't be looking at, and things I shouldn't be saying. And that's tough. And it's tough because you want to go out and you want to have fun. You know, I'm only 33. not married, no kids, never have been. But I would love to have that at one point in time. If God will grace me with that and finding that special partner, I would like to have that. But I have to look back and go, okay, listen, I can only get that once God is done teaching me my lessons where I'm currently at and dealing with those heart issues. Because like you said earlier, those are all heart issues. You can't dwell on something unless it's already in your heart. Yeah. Right? Now people say, oh, I'm being attacked. Well, are you being attacked because he just knows how to get to you? Or are you being attacked because it's something you didn't finish dealing with?
Yeah.
Right?
Because how you are now is what you're going to take into marriage.
Correct.
Yeah. And so you want to be whole in this area, conquered. Because
but I think we have to be careful with that, because then people may have someone in their life and they don't feel like they're whole enough, and so they may like push it off and postpone it. And so I just want to make sure I put that in there, that the wholeness process is continual throughout the rest of your life. So I don't want anybody to get the impression that they have to just be perfectly whole, everything has to be together. When God presents you with the one that you know is for you, he's letting you know that you're ready, but that doesn't mean that you're done. Ready doesn't mean you're done. Any like deliverance, like Matt just said, even with deliverance has to be maintained. So he's not calling you to this finish line and you just go back to living in kind of way. He wants you transformed. Yeah. He doesn't just want you to have the victory over this thing. He wants you transformed, that you're different once you come out of it, and then you stay different by adapting to a certain kind of lifestyle. You know what I'm saying to you? Mm-hmm. So this is like when I think about, the summertime and people who are not whole yet are still working through heart issues. They try to go to a safe haven, and I've considered that safe haven to be church. And so it brings me to the next question I have in my mind is there a certain, how do you say this, dress code? Dress code that Christians or churchgoers should wear when they come to church. What's appropriate and what's not. Because summertime is hot, and if you go to one of them Baptist churches, all they have is the fan. They don't have an AC. They got the building fun, but they just not there yet. And so, is a summer dress okay, to praise the Lord in? So, I mean, that's the topic that in the summertime always comes up. Like the 3-piece, it's not going to work for me with the collar and the patent leather shoes, and it's just hot. And then you're going to pass out, and you think it was the Holy Spirit, but it wasn't. It was a heat stroke, and you got to get delivered, and you got to get raised from the dead. Like, talk to me. What do you wear to church, and do people have an issue with it? Because you can't hide what you got, Mono.
So when I'm on stage, I do make sure that I'm covered, because people have had an issue with my shape. So off stage, I'm in jeans, and even at that, sometimes people are like, give me a hard time saying how tight my jeans are or whatever. But I'm like, this is my size, and they fit. And this is how they fit. There's a difference between spandex and jeans, so I understand that. But I mean, my jeans, it's like, this is my size. So I don't know what else to do.
So do you feel like you're appropriately dressed?
I do.
Have you ever seen someone who wasn't appropriately dressed? If so, what did they have on?
I mean,
within reason.
I was thinking, like girls that'll come in sometimes that, you'll see like the spaghetti strap little dresses that just go to mid-thigh. And like cleavage showing.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Spaghetti strap dresses.
Spaghetti strap.
Little tiny spaghetti
straight up summertime.
Like the little maxi dresses?
Not flowing, but it's tight.
Oh, I was thinking about the flowy ones. You're talking about the tight one. Okay.
Tight.
I mean,
I call those cocktail dresses.
Okay.
I call those find your husband dresses.
Yeah, those are cocktail dresses.
Cocktail.
Yeah. That's what I call them.
I'm not gonna work on that. But
but you guys are talking about like sundresses.
I'm talking about single women and how they dress because they want a godly man from the church. And is that appropriate or not?
Or do they really want a godly man, or they just want a man from the church?
I'm just saying, no, man. I mean, like, people out here trying to take their shot. They fishing at the same time. It's like you don't want to be like, some people don't want to get stuck in their singleness by being so prude and so modest that, they got, a certain style about them. And so sometimes people feel like they have to hide their own identity. And then they meet a man that likes them, but, wait until you really get to know me. I've been playing this Christian role. I've been wearing a Christian costume, which God never told us we had to wear. You know what I'm saying? I feel like sometimes that people need to find a church that fits them. I remember I went to a church in Texas, and I'm not going to name the name of the church, but it was really laid back. People came with beachwear. I mean, sandals and board shorts.
This is in Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? And that was the culture. And I didn't feel any type of way, even with my background and being exposed to so much sexual stuff in my life. Like, I felt comfortable. The energy and the vibe there was awesome. And so was it appropriate? Was it inappropriate? I think that I've come to a place to where I don't define appropriate or inappropriate based on what I see. It's based on your agenda or the energy you're giving off and what you're wearing. Because it could be.
Because that's true. Because I think sometimes, I've had men tell me, which I guess is a compliment. They're like, Monique, you are very sexy, but you don't give off this like sexual, I'm trying to lure you in, lustful kind of a vibe.
Is that how the conversation starts? Monique, you're
how
very
that starts.
sexy.
No, I'm just saying in the midst of so I take that as a compliment.
Didn't Steve Harvey get in trouble for calling Yolanda Adams sexy?
I don't know.
Did he?
He did.
I don't know. They did.
I mean, there's a Christian community that wasn't pleased with what he said, and then there was another part of Christian
This is
community
coming
was like,
from
hey, man.
This is coming from a guy who is not saved or anything, doesn't have Jesus in his heart.
Are you sure? I think he's saved.
No, I'm talking about what the compliment was given to me.
Not
Steve
Steve Harvey.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure Steve Harvey practiced.
So that's what I'm saying. So I didn't see it as anything, but I thought it was a compliment because he says you don't give off this like you're trying to seduce me or you're trying to, even though I'm attracted to you, but you don't like. Do you know what I mean?
How old was this guy?
Well, this was in my 20s. He was in his 20s. Okay,
so this is before thoughts came up.
Wow.
Because that's pretty much what he's like. You don't come off as a thought. But this is before. This is pre-thought.
You're hot, but you're not a thought.
You guys are horrible. Never mind. I said
change that story. You ain't gonna just sneak anything in the radar on us.
You can't just sneak it.
Well, I'm just saying, like I found it as a compliment from someone who's not in church, who's not saying something like that. That's what I'm saying.
What he was saying is you are attractive, you are seductive, yet you are not a floozy.
Okay.
All right.
What he was saying, I'm gonna tell you my interpretation.
This is probably some old cat daddy.
What he was saying, he was trying to let your defenses down. Like, no, you're not coming across sexy at all. Do that and do it some more. That's not a problem for me at all. I like what you're doing. It looks very modest. You should do it to the next level.
It's interesting because talk about going to church, right? I grew up in a non-denominational church. We attend the same church. Donovan.
Yeah.
We do not attend the same church, but I've been to some. Yeah, I've been to some black. Yo, it is 2 p.m. What are we done here? Like, are we? Oh, we gotta intersect. We gotta break in between.
Another offering?
This is ridiculous.
The goal is to keep you there and to avoid you from going to any of those Sodom and Gomorrah parties that they have, especially during the summertime. I look at this topic and it's really dear to my heart because there was a time where I decided that I was gonna go to church more often and kind of just be present there. With my background, I was involved in a culture that was very heavily influenced by sex and things of the, exotic nature. And so, you don't just step out of that world and immediately just everything's off you. There's always residue, so how I carry myself or how I may choose to dress, it sucks if you walk into a place and because that's your current state, you don't feel welcomed.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, there are certain people, even in authority or leaders in the church, that aren't ready to deal with people who have not been delivered yet. Yeah. And I think that should be a requirement for leaders to have a heart for people and be able to see them where they are and help navigate them through that instead of just, judging them. And so when I look at what's appropriate, inappropriate, I recognize that outside of any compliments I may get from somebody else, ultimately my Father needs to approve of what I'm doing. Yeah. And if the Holy Spirit's inside of us, giving us that prick like that's not going to work for you. Yes. You shouldn't do that, versus go ahead, walk in your freedom, walk in your authenticity. I think that's the check that we need to be looking for if we're going to church or if we're going to a party or if we're going to a pool party. It's like I heard one girl say, she said a Christian girl should wear one pieces, not two pieces. I said, that's fine. Her body ain't going to change. So I feel like there's this, and I know Matt can relate to this. And so we're going to ask you, Mano, because you're very heavily on the curvaceous side.
The curvaceous scale.
I feel like there is a double standard because you see a skinny girl without many curves in a summer dress. She's not judged as harshly as someone who's been endowed with dangerous curves. I do see that double standard often. Like if a skinny girl wears something smaller or fitting, no one's offended by it. But I feel like when it's somebody's cup of tea and they like what they see, then now they start to have a problem with it because you can have two people with the same outfit on and only one is offensive if they seem to, look more like what the culture says is sexy or sexual or inviting the wrong kind of attention.
Yeah. It's
you wish you were skinny?
unfortunate. No.
Do you wish you were skinny?
Like how she said, no.
No. Sir.
Listen, there is nothing.
No.
If you are skinny out there, if you
There's
were skinny,
nothing
Minnie, there is
wrong
nothing
because some of you are naturally petite
wrong with that.
and tiny,
all right?
and that's your body, and it's all
There's nothing
good.
wrong with it.
I mean,
There's not.
they get away with a lot of stuff. I
They
mean, I
do.
love it.
Skinny girls can't.
They get away with
Y'all get-
attitudes.
I mean, you know,
Y'all get away with
speaking
a lot
as
of
a
stuff.
plus
you can wear a lot of
size
clothes
myself.
that I can't.
Wow.
I'm
Plus size.
I'm a plus
You
size
are plus
minister of
size.
the gospel.
Plus size
You are
minister.
plus size.
It's like I try. 2X just ain't working. I'm gonna have to move over to 3. But there was one time. It was summertime, and you know, just church shirts. They didn't stretch, and so I couldn't do it that day. I couldn't do the button up collar. It was too hard to get on. It was hot. House doesn't have AC. I was trying to use a fan. It just didn't work. So I said, I'm wearing a t-shirt. But I forgot that was one of the Sundays that they call people down for healing. And I've been I'm one of the ministers that go up there and they pray for people and, and heal them and whatnot. And I legitimately love doing that. But I didn't go to the front and do it because I felt like my shirt was too tight. I felt like somebody had told me the same thing, like you're going to be a distraction. And I let it get in my head.
Yeah. I've even received from 2 messages from men on Facebook telling me themselves that I was a distraction on stage.
Because you were singing?
When I was singing
Wow.
up on stage. And, and I'm kind of like, what? First of all, you're only seeing the front part of me, not the back. But I guess that doesn't really matter. But so I'm like, and I was even wearing.
You should have spun around for him. How about now?
Yeah, you wrong for that. You wrong for that.
What?
You wrong.
What?
So that's what I'm saying. So it's kind of like, in a way, yes, it did used to bother me. It did used to get to me because I've been told I was a distraction, or they received letters from people wrote letters to church telling me I was too sexy on stage. That
Did you ever write back and say thank you?
No, I never wrote back. But because I see other women who are smaller frame, not as many
or
curves,
weird framed,
that aren't covered, but I've been told I need to remain covered. So
look, I'm not gonna sit there and act like there's not people
know,
out there who have different shapes.
There are.
That just
Squash
curves in weird places, and people love it. You know what I'm saying?
There's pears. There's squashes.
Yeah. I mean,
bananas,
apple
apples,
bottoms.
I have dated
and
a few of them myself. I mean, I don't judge or really like say, okay, she has to look this way physically for me to be interested in someone.
I've dated a pencil.
Yeah,
real talk. It was slim.
I mean, and so, yeah, I mean, we have to, we have an opportunity to say that for our audience who may be of a peculiar shape, to let them know that, it's a level playing field out here. If you got that confidence, that's all that really matters, by the plus size ministers in the building,
Listen, I'm like Chase Bank, all right? Equal opportunity lender.
Equal. What you lending though? That's what I'm saying.
The gospel.
The gospel.
The gospel. Nothing but the gospel.
The game is sold, not told, I guess, and changed the whole message, my brother. Okay, so when I consider this, and I know that this is a big issue or hiccup that comes up, especially during the summertime, at what point do we separate ourselves from the culture, even if it's the Christian culture, and just live truly in our authenticity? Like we have pool parties at my church, and it's required that we wear t-shirts.
Oh, really?
Oh,
for everyone?
Yes.
Men and women. Okay.
Yes, men and women we all have to wear t-shirts over whatever it is.
Oh.
Like, does it have to be a white t-shirt or a black t-shirt?
It doesn't matter. It does have to have sleeves.
What? Wait, what?
It has to have sleeves.
That's not a t-shirt.
Like what you're wearing right now.
Oh, it can't be like a tank top.
Okay. I was like, if you over here walking around,
you have to wear a hoodie.
you over here to wire a whole bunch of seals just walking around.
And so, then you're faced with this question. You're like, okay, you ever been in that situation where I'm going to adhere to the rules or the laws, but I am going to find a loophole here. So let me find the thinnest shirt that I can find.
Donovan is the king of loopholes, by the way.
I've been
crowned.
Because told that he always tries to find a loophole.
I need to know where they're at because they're potential pitfalls.
That is good. Okay, that's fine. For him.
Okay.
For him.
Somebody got to go out there and ahead of everybody will say, hey, you don't want to go that way. I may have enjoyed it, but don't you go that way because that's a pitfall. No. You guys just staring at me.
I mean,
not when you say it like that.
I'm just being honest. I do enjoy looking for the loopholes.
Oh, no,
they
you
have come back to bit me plenty of times.
I'm sure they have.
But
yes.
I mean, honestly, the first thing I thought was like, okay, I'll just wear a tank top. They're like, no tank tops. And I'm like, okay, I just wear this kind of shirt. But ultimately, the questions I kept asking myself led to the place of why.
Why? Well, I mean, we know why because they're trying to avoid
No, not why to them, but why am
for
I
you.
why am I challenging this
Okay.
rule? Why
I think one
do
is
I
because
want
you're
to show
being
more?
told one
Okay.
that you can't.
Okay.
So I know that's one reason why, because someone is telling you can't, Donovan, do
Okay.
that.
You know I struggle with
and
that.
you don't like that, so I know that.
Yeah.
And then the other one is, I mean, whether it even is in your own subconscious, like, but I look good, or I worked hard for this body.
So if you
or
have your
nothing
husband
wrong, you know.
and he's going to chaperone a pool party for some young adult women 16 to like 22 years old, would you prefer that those 16 and 20-year-old women wear their t-shirts over their swimsuits, or do you like, whatever, my husband's good?
No, I mean, I feel like being at where adults is different because they do ask that like at summer camps and stuff for teenagers.
Okay.
Do summer camps.
We did? I don't
But
remember that.
or girls in one pieces, and if they're not in one piece, just to cover up.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah.
I do remember that.
But
yeah.
they could be in a one piece and not covered. But if they're in a bikini, they just want the girls to wear, even if it's just a tank top, but they want girls to at least be covered.
Okay. The midsection, the
had-
stomach area.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had less restrictions
There
in
is
your church.
there was
but-
a documentary on Netflix about the science of sex appeal, and there are certain parts of the body or the way a person can move that can
Yeah.
entice female or male, and so covering up is kind of one of the most practical ways to reduce the amount of temptation people will be exposed to
It is.
at a church event.
Yeah.
And so, but the thing about it is that when I'm not at a church pool party, I don't wear a t-shirt.
Correct.
So
Yeah.
am I in the wrong?
I wouldn't say that you're in the wrong.
No.
I think that you're adhering to the culture that you are around, right? If I were to walk into a synagogue,
Mhm.
guess what? I'm going to put on a kippah or a yarmulke, okay? Whatever
okay.
you choose to call it.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to put one on. Why? Because it's a sign of respect.
Okay.
I'm adhering to their facility's laws,
Okay.
their congregation's laws, because I'm in that element.
Okay.
Now a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't have to change who you are. Me wearing a t-shirt isn't who I am. Me wearing a yarmulke isn't who I am. I am
true.
still myself.
Mhm.
I am just choosing to do so to appease that mass that I am around right now.
Mhm.
Now, if you are around in a situation where you're like, listen, they asking me to do something I really don't feel comfortable with, then you
Let's
probably
do it.
shouldn't be there.
Would you go skinny dipping?
Skinny dipping.
With who?
Okay. Have you gone skinny dipping?
No.
Okay,
I have.
I've never been skinny dipping.
Let's quantify
No.
what
Skinny.
skinny dipping is.
Have you ever gone swimming like totally nude, without clothes, in the public? All right.
No.
No.
No,
Quantify.
it's quantified.
Sandy.
Was there more people there than just you and the person that you were with? Just like that's a cultural, that's a community.
Fully nude?
People do
No.
that.
Fully nude? No.
Are you having a hard time, Matt?
Okay.
No, I had on my socks.
Hey, black guys do that. We keep some socks on,
I
don't
had
we?
on wow.
Black guys keep some socks on, boy.
What is that? Why?
I don't know.
To separate myself from that culture.
I like
I
how
will not wear socks. No.
Oh,
Jeez.
so it's a no.
So
So Matt's
Okay.
been frolicking in the
No.
water.
Okay.
Hold
No.
on,
I'm
hold on,
no.
hold
I'm
on.
gonna tell. I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
tell. All right.
Please,
We're gonna go
please.
ahead. All right. Wasn't trying to get this deep on it, but yeah, I'll
the
go ahead.
tales from a
Tales
virgin, a
from-
playboy, and a stripper. Please tell your tale.
No, yes, I in my back when I was not living with Christ in my life, I walked away from Christ at that point in time. Yeah, I would go out and there would be pool parties in the lifestyle that I was attached to, and everybody was nude. So honestly, for me, the being naked around people doesn't bother me. It doesn't. I'm not bashful about it. It doesn't make me feel any type of way because that's the culture that I ingrained myself into at that particular time. And so I just grew accustomed to it.
Okay.
I mean, that doesn't mean that you could just walk up on me naked and be like, hey, how you doing? Like, whoa. There's still a barrier there.
Mhm.
hug?
But
You don't
you
hug
can't. No, don't be hugging me.
Rules change.
Rules change.
No hug.
Yeah,
Air
don't be-
high
don't be
fives.
hug- Okay. All right, you over there? Boop. There you go. Bye. See you. Walk away now. But no, now that I'm no longer in that lifestyle, yeah, there's certain things that I innately just do not do anymore. Now, for me personally, if someone's like, "Hey, we're gonna jump in a pool," and I don't have a bathing suit, boxers, now, I don't view it as that big of a deal because it's the same thing as board shorts. That's how I view it.
Yeah.
Now, some people may think different.
Yeah.
But I view it as the same.
So that's a great topic though, because there is during the summertime and this whole summer fever idea, I've seen lingerie that covers more than some of these bikinis.
Yes.
Facts.
Yes.
Facts.
You know?
Very
And so
true.
with my walk with Christ, or saying that you're a Christian, if you find yourself at an event where that is the norm and that's what's happening, should you dismiss yourself from
If
that
it's-
environment?
I mean, if it's obviously going to be a temptation that you're really going to struggle with, then I think that would be the wise
So
thing
if it,
to
only
do.
if it's a temptation, not just because you're associated with this Christian community.
Well, I mean, I guess, well, if you're going to broaden it to an event, I guess it would depend on what kind of an event it is, or if is it just someone's house and it's their backyard and
Well, you
there's
know, like
30
my-
people over. That's what I'm saying.
My
is
friends love to go to Vegas, and
Okay.
the only reason I don't go, 'cause I'm more of an introvert, and that's just too many people, and it's nasty because they're all in the same bathtub. So, you know, they want to go and they want to get in the pools and all the people and the alcohol and stuff like that. And they say, you know, I've heard some of the elders say that, you know, well, you're a Christian, you shouldn't be going to those events anyway. It's almost like, you know, when what was it, Lot and Abrams, you know, went their separate ways, and Lot was like, yo, I'm going to Sodom and Gomorrah. Like, that's where all the fun is happening. So
That's where it's popping.
should we even go to those events, you know?
I think it depends, because like I have a friend who celebrates her birthday in a nightclub, and I'll go to a nightclub. That's obviously not my scene, but that's where she holds her birthday party.
Okay.
So I'll go. I'm not drinking or anything. You know what I mean? So it's not even like I'm, you know, the one sitting on the side with my bottle of water chatting with people, or
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? So I'm like,
Would it be okay if
I'll
you had
go.
a glass of communion while you were at the club?
well, I just don't drink, period.
Okay.
So for me, it's
I mean,
not,
you
it's not
know
what
I
I'm doing.
drink.
Yeah.
I
And,
don't.
and so I'm trying to see, like, so there's,
So, as I'm saying, it depends. And if someone were to see me,
yeah.
to take a picture, and my easy explanation is it was my friend's birthday party.
So I wanna bring this topic up because you just said it right there. Just being associated with people, going somewhere with people. The question that comes up a lot of times is that during the summertime, people want to go take their summer trips. I have friends who are
Mhm.
teachers and kids is out for summer. They're off for summer. Other people, like, they plan their vacations around the summer. Now it's summer. Summer fever is a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay for a guy and a girl who are not in a relationship, but they just want to go on a vacation as friends to share a room?
I'm gonna say no.
Mm.
I'm gonna say no. And me and you had this discussion a couple years back. And the biggest thing about that, to kind of come full circle, is that temptation and with that polarizing look of two individuals of the opposite sex who are not together
Mm-hmm.
going into a room alone. It's just not good.
So with today's culture, I mean, it could be the same sex. That doesn't look good either.
True, right? But it's just one of those things where it's just not supposed. It's not supposed to be done. It's when it talks about the appearance of evil. That's exactly what it means. The appearance of
Mhm.
evil. Now, if someone identifies with as a homosexual and you see him go in there, and okay, then maybe they shouldn't be in there with the opposite sex.
The cultural assumption is that something's inevitable. It's something that's going to happen if a man or a woman is this that close quarters with each other, you know. And I understand that temptation does exist, but I mean, shoot, my bank account being on zero is a temptation also. Like, that's a I'm trying. I mean, one of my friends, they had graduated from college, and I wanted to take them on a graduation trip. Couldn't afford 2 rooms, but they deserve to be celebrated. So you got a room, 2 different beds, you know. And a few people like, yo, you don't need to do that. You know, this
Mhm.
is a woman, you're a man. I'm like, okay, I knew that when I looked in the mirror this morning. I was aware that I was a man, and you don't need to go on this trip. And I'm like, well, did you want to give me something on the room? Did you want to pay a little something extra so that we could afford 2 different
Yeah.
separate rooms? I mean, there's real practical life stuff that you're trying to overcome and deal with while still trying to celebrate life. And I'm very particular about the rules that are being set in the culture, and that pushing people away from the church experience or the Christian community experience. And they just want to worship God and Jesus on their own because it's just so many other rules and laws that come that don't even really make sense, and nobody can really explain why they're put in place. Now, personally, I don't agree with everything.
Mhm.
And the things I do agree with is because somebody had to explain them to me. You already know how I am. Like, don't tell me what I can't
Yeah.
do. Tell me why and explain it to me. So from that trip, there was a lot of backlash about what I did, and I don't feel bad about it. And I would do it again. I know what, you know, I'm not gonna say, oh, well, I know what I would or I wouldn't do. No, I thought there's been some situations
Mhm.
where I swore I wasn't gonna do nothing, and I did something.
Exactly.
You
Mhm.
know, and so I know
Yeah.
that temptation is there, but does that mean I avoid it, or do I walk in more wisdom? Do I have an accountability? Do I talk to God about it? What is some practical insight you guys can provide for a situation like that where the finances don't allow for separate rooms, but you still want to go and celebrate and have a good summer before you go back to the hustle and bustle?
I will say this: if I can't look at myself and say, you know what? Without a shadow of a doubt, I'm not attracted to this individual, and they are not attracted to me in any way, shape, or form. I will not put myself in that situation. I will not. No, we're not talking about my sister, my mother. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone who we're of, probably similar in age, right? Two young individuals, whatever, and we're friends. You never know what could happen. Something could happen as simple as the way you never looked at them before, and then next thing you know, you just smelt an aroma from them coming out of the shower, and you're like, oh. And that's different. Exactly. Their hair is wet, they glistening, right? And all of a sudden,
on purpose.
that spot, exactly. That you're like, you never wore glitter, now you got glitter on. What's going on?
You couldn't find a body towel. That's a hand towel.
But it's those little things, those little instances can spark something in your psyche and have you go, well, maybe, and it's that maybe. Which is the little pebble, which trips you before you hit the stone.
So you guys don't believe in Airbnb and hostels and sharing rooms?
One, I don't listen. I've been in the military. I've done the barracks thing. Okay, I don't want to be sleeping next to nobody I don't know. Okay, so the hostel thing ain't gonna work.
That's a luxury, bro. That's a luxury some people don't have, man.
Sorry.
But I think even
God's grace will be sufficient. He will provide the funds. I will not sleep next to John, Timothy, and Ralph. Not happening.
Man.
Did it before, ain't doing it again. Thank you, Uncle Sam.
It's not necessarily rules people are putting. It's just something that God, that's why he does say, stay away from the appearance of evil. And so that's
appearance in his eyes or the public's eye.
What do you think it's going to be if you have a man and a woman who aren't married but sleeping in the same room?
But if they don't know that, if they see these two people, they don't have any background on that person. Like when me and my sister had to go travel to a funeral for my relative. My sister is 6 years older than me, but we look pretty much the same age, and we have the same last name. And so we got a room together because we had to be there in Michigan to put the funeral together or whatnot. And, coming out of the room.
You know it, though.
And that's what I'm saying. So I also knew when I went on a trip with a young lady, I also knew what we were doing and what we weren't doing also. But again, the appearance of who? It doesn't look like evil to me. So it looked like evil to who?
But you're not, okay, that's your family. So sister's different. But you're not married to this other woman that you're going into another room with. But the people who are
looking at you don't know anything. They just see two people.
But you do. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying. So for your own self, you know this.
So that verse is about,
you know what I mean?
It looks
like
evil to.
It's whatever it is. So like, even I remember one time my pastor was talking about he went into the mall and he found this store that just had a bunch of little random stuff in it. He used to be an alcoholic. Okay. And they give you, he bought this drink. They give it to you in a brown paper bag. It smells like alcohol, looks like alcohol, but it's not alcohol. And so he was like, huh. So he bought it, was drinking, walking through the mall, and it's in a brown paper bag. And then as he's like, this kind of doesn't look, he's like, it's not alcohol though. It's not. So he's like, but, people seeing me, people knowing who I am, knowing the background I came out of, how does this look? That's what I'm talking about. That's appearance of evil. That's what I'm saying. So it can apply to any situation. So that's why he threw it away. He's like,
He didn't finish the drink.
Again, that's another luxury. People just buy stuff and throw it away. I'm sorry. I'm not there
Don't
yet.
miss the point.
I'm trying not to miss the point, but y'all mess with my bank account, man.
Loopholes.
Yes.
Loopholes,
I will
you can still celebrate, even on a smaller scale, believe God for the funds, or wait for another time when more funds come. You know what I mean? Like,
I study NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I study how the mind works. And I know that everything that we see has to pass through our personality filter. Our personality filter is where we delete, distort, and generalize everything that we see. And so regardless of what I'm doing, I know that it has to pass through that person's personality filter. So when you tell me to avoid the appearance of evil, I have to avoid also the appearance of what could be translated as evil. And that means everything. Anything I could do can be translated as evil given the right personality. And so I'm trying to find out, where can I freely walk with Christ without being worried if I'm going to be excommunicated or exiled by his children?
I think there's some things that, granted, you're right. No matter what you do, no matter what you say, someone could take it the wrong way. And that's just what it is, because it's people, like you said, personality. But I think some things, whether it's what you're wearing, someone could say right now, what I'm wearing, somebody could say, that's so tempting. So it is what it is. People, but I mean, when it comes to bigger things or things that are concrete or even a lifestyle that you came out of. So that's why I'm saying, look at it from that kind of a filter when you're looking at that verse.
And so what it comes down to for me, how I make my decisions after I put up that great argument, I have to do that because there's people out there that I talk to who don't come to Christ simply because of the culture they'd have to walk in. What I have come to is the verse that says you don't want to grieve the Holy Spirit. And so that's my checks and balance. When it talks about the appearance of evil, I ask the Holy Spirit, what do you think? How are you translating this? What is this going to appear like to the heavenly host? That is the audience that I'm most concerned with. Because I know that people will falsely judge me before one thing and then come back a year later and apologize. So I can't really consume my decision making with how it's going to be perceived by the elders or people who look up to me. Like they'll have to get over it.
Yeah, no, and I'm not saying to be consumed with it. I just feel like there's certain like bigger things versus smaller, because sometimes that's what happens. People major on the minors and they minor on the majors. So that's what I'm saying. So that's why, because like you said, anybody could be offended at anything at any time.
Cool. So let's get real. Let's get real.
Go ahead.
You ready, Matt?
Let's do it.
Because the situation is that this podcast is going to blow up. And they're going to call us and fly us somewhere, and they're only going to have enough for one room with 2 beds and a couch. And I just want to know if we can all stay in the same room, Mano. Can we all stay in the same room? I mean, how does that look? I mean,
first of all,
with our background,
we're going to need separate rooms, guys.
Oh, you going to believe God for separate rooms?
No,
Me and Matt, we ain't sharing a room either.
We ain't sharing no room.
Nope, 3 rooms, Jesus.
That's what I said, separate rooms.
I'm a grown man, dog.
Y'all going to have me sleep.
3 of us sharing one bathroom?
Everybody listening, they're going to probably have me sleeping out in the lobby.
3 of us sharing one bathroom.
Because it's going to look evil.
That podcast would be ending quick.
Man, that's just wrong, man.
I need 2 hours
That's
to
fine.
do this hair in the bathroom.
Goodness, 2 hours for your hair.
Yeah.
2 hours.
That's another whole topic right there.
It is. Summertime. You should cut that off for the summertime. It gets too hot. No?
Just shave it off.
No, but I do donate it to Locks of Love every couple years. I cut off about 12 to 16 inches. So it's not due for a cut like at the beginning of the year. I'll cut it again. It's getting kind of long.
All right. Well, summer fever hasn't hit you as hard as it's hit us in the past. I know that there's been some situations in the past that left us walking out of the summer with our heads down.
Yeah.
And so what are some things that we can kind of encourage ourselves and encourage other people to just make sure you avoid this, like during summer fever? Like, don't just lose your mind and think that, sometimes people feel like they treat summer like they treat Vegas. Like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the summer doesn't stay in the summer. So what are some practical things we can?
I think some of the most practical ways of thinking about that is the things you do during the summertime, don't stop when it hits November. They're still there. All right. So it isn't one of those things where, well, that was just a season, because that season it was a hole you dug. So you, by covering it up, doesn't put all of the soil that you took out back. If you ever dig a hole and you try to put it back, you're like, oh, it looked different.
It looked real different.
It looked real different. Right? It's never the same. It is never the same.
That's good.
And, we shouldn't be looking for, what's the next season? What's the next season? Just be in the season of you. Just be in the season of God, God's grace, God's blessing. And I'm not trying to get all like churchy with you, like, oh, he's just speaking in hyperlogy, and he's just saying theological statements that are buzzwords. No, that's really what it is, man. Be happy with yourself. I don't care what's going on the gram. I don't care how much you flossing. I don't care how much you flexing, which I do on the gram sometimes.
What?
But just be happy with where you're at and where God has called you for growth and where God called you to be. And so often we just get bogged down with keeping up with the Joneses and seeing what Troy is doing and seeing what they doing. And I wish I was here. And God, when's my blessing coming? God's like, listen, your blessing's on the way. Why don't you be happy with what I gave you? Just be happy with what I gave you.
So let me ask you a question, Matt, because be happy with what God gave you is a great idea.
Okay.
It's a great thing. Like, I'm going to be happy. The Lord is my favor. But I mean, we're talking a lot about the gram and how people are posting their lives or their pretend lives on the gram. How do you maintain a attitude of gratitude when you're seeing other people who are not necessarily trying to walk a circumspect life? Okay. They're not trying to walk in righteousness and holiness, but you see them enjoying all the things that you've been praying to God for the last 10 years.
I always look back at where I came from.
Okay.
I look back at where I came from and what God's delivered me from and where I'm at currently and where I know I'm going to be. My first car was a 1986 Toyota Camry.
Okay.
I was like, okay. Everyone's like, oh, you even had a car. Like, come on, man. You had one. Yeah, I did. 1986 Toyota Camry. Guess what? 1986 Toyota Camry had a busting head gasket. All right. So if I went over like 25 miles, I couldn't drive on the freeway. I couldn't drive on the freeway.
Wow.
Because it would overheat. So I always had two gallons of water in my trunk. So if I went over 25 miles, I would see the gauge go on. I'd turn the heat on. I'd pull over. Had a towel, dingy towel. All right. Had to put it over so I wouldn't burn my face. All right. This is real life, right?
Why do I imagine Matt on the side of the road with his shirt off, using one gallon for himself to pour it on his head and the other gallon in the car?
Listen, I didn't have the baby oil like you had, so I had to use the water. But yeah,
that's for another episode.
So I put the towel over, get the
cap off the radiator.
Get the cap off the radiator. It would all the stuff would go everywhere. And then I put a gallon in there. I wait for the core temperature to go down, wait about 15 minutes, and then go about my business. So when people look and they're like, oh, well, you have this and you have that and God's great. Listen, but I don't show you what it took for me to get there. I didn't show you all the stupid jobs I had before I got there. I didn't show you all the bad relationships and dysfunctional relationships I had before I got here. What you didn't see was the growth that God was like, hey, you chose not to do it the right way. All right, you're going to learn. And then I stumbled and I tripped and I said, God, help me. And I reached up my hand and he picked me up and we kept pushing. So I look at it now and I go, and there's even times I look now and I go, God, I want this. And God, I desire this. You said you're going to bring me my dreams and my desires. Where is it at? And he's like, I'm still working on you. Keep waiting. I'm still working on you. So the gram to me, it's fake. It's fugazi. It doesn't mean nothing. It only shows you one image. That's the image they want to show you. It's a 360 all the way around, but you're only seeing 90. You're only seeing a small little portion.
So I know that Mono, you're on the gram, you're on Snapchat. You're probably more heavily connected because you do like different shows and you show people like you have a greater audience than I do. I know that online. Do you customize who you're willing to follow because of this particular reason of comparison or trying to stay in an attitude of gratitude, or because it's summertime and people are going to be posting more tempting things? Do you adjust your news feed? Do you change who you follow during certain seasons?
Sometimes. Yeah, there's people I've deleted and unfollowed because it's like, I don't want to see that. Or
like dudes or females?
Both.
Okay.
Both actually.
I think that it's something to consider. I know that some people suffer like highly from, they say depression really hits like during, this winter time when you're doing family stuff. But I think during the summertime too, there's depression because that's when people are really supposedly living their best life. And if you're constantly seeing that, there has to be something that we could say or insight we can give to encourage, like even not even younger people. I've done suicide prevention and depression groups for about 2.5 years. And it's something to be said about what you continually feed your mind. Yeah. Be it, especially, I know music is always a big thing. Movies are a big thing, but who you're following online can really take that summer fever to a whole nother level of summer depression, of summer suicidal thoughts. So it's really something to be said about who we're choosing to follow. And I'm not saying you have to follow all church people or spiritual people, but, how important is that aspect of, you're managing your online, how you're influenced online?
Yeah, because what you see, because the Bible talks about how, things go in you through the ear gate and the eye gate. So what you're watching, what you're listening to is all going in you. And the depression is so real because even I have, friends and know people that are therapists as well. And they talk about how social media, how it's been so detrimental to so many people because you're constantly comparing yourself. And that's like the danger, constantly comparing yourself to, because it's only been around for 10 years. Literally. Wow. But I feel like we've forgotten what life was like before Instagram. It's legitimately, it's only been around 10 years and that's it. But people live off of it and they compare. And so it's dangerous. And so I always encourage people to have a time where you fast social media and stay off of it and don't be on it at all. And some people are so addicted and don't even realize they're addicted. And so that is a problem. So that's why one way is just to cut it off for a period of time.
To make sure you can still have that ability to.
Because some people can't. That's like, some people, they're addicted to TV.
And so what do you say if somebody really can't? They're like, no, I really can't just cut this off. Like,
you try to go the next 3 hours without going on it.
Okay, so a shorter
just
time frame.
Mm-hmm.
So
Very small.
so something you said that triggered me, and I want to ask Matt this because
Okay.
this is something that's said, NRA and stuff, like guns don't kill people, people kill people. So oftentimes people call social media dangerous and bad. Is it the social media or is it a user error?
I think it definitely comes down to not only the user but the content.
Yeah.
The content that you're choosing to observe and really glorify.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm.
Because you can use it something where
That'd
you're
be
like,
better
oh,
said. Yeah.
I'm listening to to this type of music, or I'm watching this. Like, well, are you watching things that are uplifting? Are you watching things that are Bible based or theology based or a learning tool? Or are you watching some girl over here twerking in a music video? What are you really watching? There's a time for learning and there's a time for entertainment.
Yeah.
But if you're only using that for a tool for entertainment and not learning, then you've missed it. You've not allowed that highway of information to be utilized to its fullest. That's how I look at it.
Good point. Mano, you want to add to that?
Yeah. No, it's true. It's the content, because it's like it's an avenue for a lot of things, and it's just like money. Money's an avenue for a lot of things, but it's the same way. How are we using it? Our lust for it, and I don't think people realize that they're lusting after the things that they're seeing and they're watching on social media. And so it is what you're putting in, so that's why I say dangerous in that one, because money is dangerous. Even though it's a good thing, it's a dangerous thing. So social media, I think it's the same way.
I have said.
Guess what?
Yes, sir.
We are going to pick up that topic on the next podcast.
Man, it's going to be good.
Yes.
It's going to be good. Redemption, tales from a virgin, a playboy, and a stripper.
Thank you so much for tuning in. You can go ahead and find us on YouTube. You will find us on all of our social media. We'll put it at the bottom. Actually, we're going to be creating our own Instagram as well, so you can find us there. It's going to be the Redemption Podcast. On Instagram, you can find us there, and you can also email us if you have any questions, any type of requests, any things that maybe you want to know how we feel about it from a perspective of either the secular world or a Christian perspective, or just maybe some type of theological perspective. And you can email us directly at theredemptionpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we can't wait to see you again.